So today we'll discuss more about the cerebral hemispheres. In this we can't see the midbrain or the diencephalon. I'll just remove the cerebrum. Yes, now we can see the inner structure. So what you can see now here is seen within the cerebral hemisphere. So this is how we can see the outer part of the cerebrum and the cranial nerves we can see. So behind we can see the cerebellum and below, then we can see the pons and the medulla. So now if we cut, we can see the structure seen within the cerebral hemisphere. So here can you see? So these are the structures which we are discussing today. So on two sides now, you can see this is the thalamus. Earlier I had told you the thalamus. Now this is the hypothalamus, isn't it? Then here is the cerebellum, and then midbrain is here, sitting on the tectum. Once we see the inner structures of the cerebrum, first we need to know the basal ganglia, the limbic system, and the ventricles. So let's study the basal ganglia first. So here in this model, it's a little bit easier to study the underlying structures. So basal ganglia, basically it's called as the basal nuclei actually. It is seen in the white matter of the central nervous system. So it has three parts basically, the caudate nucleus. So here, this will be the caudate nucleus. This is one of the part of the basal ganglia. So it has the head, body and a tail. Which one? The caudate nucleus of the basal ganglia. Next here, this one. This is called as the putamen. It is quite spherical or oval. So this is the putamen, and sitting medially now will be the globus pallidus. So here, this is the globus pallidus, which has an internal area and an external area. So internal area is also called as the medial area, and external area is called the lateral area. So they are medial to the putamen. Now together, the globus pallidus and the putamen, here it is called the lentiform nucleus. And this is the caudate nucleus, what I told. And putamen and caudate nucleus together, it is called the neostriatum. So now we can see the caudate nucleus, the globus pallidus, now here we can see the structures of the diencephalon, medial to the globus pallidus. There are also two other components. Now we can see here the subthalamic nucleus and the substantia nigra. So now we can see here. The next will be the limbic system. Just know what is limbic system. So it is anatomically distinct set of structures. More than it's a collection of the nuclei. There are few structures which I'll be showing you. So this one now is the hippocampus, or the hippocampal formation we can call. It is related to the memory. It sits in the medial aspect. So this is the temporal lobe, isn't it? So it is present medial to the temporal lobe. Then there is the once I remove this ganglia here. Yes, so this is the fornix. Next, mammillary body. Yes, so these are the two mammillary bodies you can see in the base of the brain. And next, if we follow the caudate nucleus here, this is the amygdala or the amygdaloid body. It's included basically in the definition of the basal ganglia or of the limbic system. So these were the few parts of the limbic system. It is very much complicated basically, but I think I just named few structures, so that's more than enough for you. Next we'll talk about the ventricles. So can you see this? The ventricle here. Yes. So what you can see in gray, they are the ventricles. Let me show you. Yes, and these ventricles basically are spaces inside the brain or the cavity within the brain where there is the cerebrospinal fluid or the CSF. So can you see here? These are all the spaces what we can see inside the central nervous system where we can see the space. So first one, what we can see, the C-shaped one here, this is the lateral ventricle. So you can see two lateral ventricles on two sides. Now here, this is the third ventricle in between and below. It is connected by the interventricular foramina here. Next, the lower one, this is the fourth ventricle, which is connected to the third ventricle. That is seen behind the pons. So in relation to the brainstem, you can see the ventricles now. So this is the roof of the third ventricle, which is bounded by the thalamus on each side, and there is the cerebral aqueduct. So that runs within the midbrain. The cerebral aqueduct runs between the midbrain. Let me see. Yes, in this section I think I can show you. Let me fade out the ventricles. Yes, now here you can see the cerebral aqueduct, which connects the fourth ventricle. So now we studied the brainstem, the cerebellum, the diencephalon, and the cerebral hemispheres, where we saw the cerebral cortex. Then we studied the lobes of the brain, that is the frontal lobe, the temporal lobe, the parietal and the occipital. Then we studied the limbic system and the ventricle.